From haunted houses to closed-off cities, there are plenty of human-made places that we can't visit. But what about locations that are off-limits because of something beyond our control? Here are 5 types of places not made by humans that we can't go. Some places are off-limits because Mother Nature is just too powerful. We may think we're at the top of the food chain, but when it comes to some of these locations, it's clearly still her world. Like this island off the coast of Brazil called Ilha da Queimada Grande, or Snake Island. The name translates to Island of the Great Fire, which has nothing to do with the environment, but instead comes from the ship that caught fire when it wrecked nearby. Maybe it was all those snakes on board. Because the real reason this island is so dangerous is because of its huge population of golden lancehead vipers. These snakes are one of the most venomous creatures on Earth, and they do not hesitate to use it. The Brazilian Navy believes there are between 4,000 and 5,000 snakes for every square kilometer on the island. That's about 10 times the density of New York City's Central Park. And unlike Central Park, there are no people around to keep the snakes calm. According to reports, anyone who ventures onto Snake Island rarely makes it off alive. In 2002, 2 fishermen swam to the island for shelter during a storm and were found dead the next morning with more than 100 snake bites each. So, even though it's only a few miles off the coast of Brazil, no one is allowed on Snake Island. It's too dangerous. You can admire the golden lanceheads from afar, but if you want to get close enough for a selfie, you'll have to do it virtually. In northern Brazil, the threat posed by nature isn't slithering around, but rather lurking beneath the ground. The sand in the beaches of this area of the northeastern coast contains silica so puratus, nicknamed liquid glass. If you accidentally ingest any of it, the tiny shards can cut up your digestive system, causing internal bleeding and death. The good news is that you won't find the glass sand at the water's edge. You have to actually dig down a few feet to get to it, so it's not like someone could accidentally step on it and be sliced open. But if you dug it up to take it home as a souvenir, you wouldn't last long. Of course, not all forbidden places are as small as an island. There's always the biggest one of them all, Antarctica. The entire continent is protected under the Antarctic Treaty System, which bans mining, drilling, and anything that would permanently alter the landscape. The treaty was created in 1959 when scientists realized they needed to keep this region of the globe free of conflicts and environmental damage. Today, which is why nobody's allowed in without special permission. This means no tourists, no military, and no treasure hunters. Even though Antarctica has its share of potential riches, estimates suggest there are over 4,000 tons of abandoned scientific equipment left behind by past expeditions. Plus, another 3,000 tons of usable fuel. But there's also a lot of hazardous material sitting on the continent, including medical waste, chemicals, sewage, and 1 million asbestos-filled containers. Accessing these materials is illegal because of how dangerous they are, and the fact that Antarctica's fragile ecosystem could be ruined if they leaked into the environment. But there are also areas of land that aren't restricted because of danger, but to preserve the natural beauty. Life forms on these locations are extremely fragile and need to be protected from outsiders. This is the case with Surtsey Island, which emerged off the coast of Iceland in 1965 following a volcanic eruption. As the new island began to form, grasses, weeds, and microorganisms arrived via ocean currents and winds. Lichens, fungi, and bacteria spread across the rocks, making a home for insects and birds. By 1972, the island had become home to 60 species of plants, 18 species of birds, and 2 species of mammals. Since then, it's become an important location for biologists studying the development of an ecosystem. Because Surtsey is a natural environment untouched by humans, it was added to the UNESCO World Heritage List in 2004. The organization calls it the youngest island in the world that has been colonized naturally and continuously by plants and animals. And for that reason, no humans are allowed on the island. Only scientists get access to study how nature progresses without us. Not all forbidden places exist in far-flung corners of the earth. Sometimes they're right next door, and we can see them every day but never enter. Take the inside of a cave, for example. While we know there are amazing structures hiding inside, like stalactites and stalagmites, there's also a whole other world we can't see with our own eyes. Underground habitats are full of bacteria, fungi, microbes, single-celled organisms, and sometimes even larger animals. They often develop unique adaptations since they're cut off from the outside world. For example, many species have bioluminescent qualities to help them survive in the dark. In order to protect these environments from outside contaminants, many caves are completely off-limits. In the United States alone, over 25,000 caves are closed to the public. One of the most famous is Carlsbad Caverns in New Mexico, stretching 1,000 feet below the surface. It's filled with 300 different formations and millions of years of history. But even though thousands of visitors come each year, none of them are allowed further than the big room. This chamber is nearly 4,000 feet long, 625 feet wide and 255 feet high, full of stalactites but it only represents about 1% of the total cave system. The rest remains hidden from the public eye. Then there are places that are off-limits because of what they might teach us. Not all forbidden zones are uninhabitable. Sometimes the isolation makes them perfect testing grounds. The best example is the Arctic island of Ellesmere, which has been used as a research station for over 50 years. Situated on the northern coast of Canada, it has remained largely untouched by humans. In 1961, the Canadian forces established Camp Borden on the island, but they only stayed for 3 months before leaving it abandoned. 2 years later, the site was turned over to the National Research Council of Canada, who placed it under the management of the University of Alberta. Since then, the facility has hosted various projects involving astronomy, biology, geology, glaciology, and physics. Researchers are drawn to the island because of its remote location. Studying Ellesmere's unique environment gives scientists an opportunity to observe the effects of climate change firsthand. For the same reason, Ellesmere is also part of the High Arctic Islands Protected Area, which covers over 130,000 square kilometers. It's been banned from all forms of resource extraction, ensuring the island remains pristine for future research. And sometimes there are places that are off limits because we just don't understand them. That might sound like science fiction, but it's really just reality. There are parts of the world that have been locked away because we do unfully understand what is happening there. It's happened on land and sea for centuries. In the Mediterranean, there are strange circular marks on the bottom of the ocean floor. Locals call them the dragon's teeth, referring to the many legends of underwater beasts. But experts believe they're actually submerged volcanoes. Around 150 of these features exist in the Mediterranean Sea, but we haven't been able to explore them until recently. On April 2, 2021, the first manned submersible mission explored the deepest known example. At 400 meters deep, it's much deeper than the Titanic wreck and almost 10 times lower than the average scuba dive. But the team didn't discover any monsters, just beautiful rock formations and signs of recent activity. And since we don't know what could be down there, it's illegal to try and find out. Scientists would rather learn more in a lab setting than on an expedition. This is especially true when it comes to the structures humans have built. Many places around the world are off limits because we don't know what they're capable of. The most famous of these is Area 51 in Nevada. It's believed that this highly classified Air Force facility carries out secretive operations for the U.S. government. Everything from testing experimental aircraft to developing spy technologies. While we know it exists, we have no idea what goes on inside. It's not surprising considering the base is located near the Nevada Test and Training Range, a 900 square mile stretch of desert used for weapons testing and training missions. But Area 51's secrecy only adds fuel to the rumors of extraterrestrial conspiracy. Over the years, UFO watchers have reported seeing strange lights and formations in the sky above Area 51. These sightings have led to countless theories about the government covering up evidence of aliens. The secrecy surrounding Area 51 is likely a way to avoid giving away valuable information to other countries. With ongoing tensions in the Middle East and the rapid advancement of Chinese technology, the U.S. needs to stay ahead of the curve, and that's why we can't go inside. Another enigmatic site is located on the other side of the world, Room 39 in North Korea. It is believed that Kim Jong-un uses this room in his private palace to carry out secret operations. Reports claim that Room 39 produces illicit goods to fund the country's nuclear program, including counterfeit money, pirated DVDs, and fake designer goods. It's also believed to engage in cybercrime and drug trafficking. Due to its involvement in shady dealings, Room 39 is thought to be heavily guarded, which is unsurprising considering North Korea is notorious for executing spies. If you're caught taking pictures of a forbidden area, you'll be lucky to get away with a warning. In some cases, however, the punishment is much worse. Take the case of Otto Warmbier, an American college student who stole a propaganda poster from his hotel. He was arrested and sentenced to 15 years hard labor. He was released 2 years later in a coma and died. Shortly after returning to the U.S., sometimes the places we can't go are actually the ones we should be looking after. The most famous of these is Chernobyl, which was the site of the worst nuclear disaster in history. On April 26, 1986, a power surge caused a partial meltdown of reactor No. 4. It released 5% of the radioactive reactor core into the atmosphere. The nearby town of Pripyat was immediately evacuated, and the area has remained largely untouched ever since. After the disaster, it was estimated that there were 80 times higher levels of radiation than normal. While the numbers have decreased over the years, large amounts of contamination remain. To protect visitors from the dangers of radiation poisoning, entry to the zone is prohibited. Although it's been 36 years since the disaster, it's still too radioactive for humans. The only thing is, there are some places in the world that we shouldn't be going, even if we can. Now check out what would happen if a human touched an alien. Or watch 10 Craziest Unsolved Mysteries on Our Planet.